Welcome back to the Dirt Kings Podcast presented by AgriTec International. I'm Caleb Fritchie, and this is Colton Klein. Today we get to talk about food plotting. We talk a lot about Nitro-Maxx and some different fertilizers, ways to lay out and kind of begin getting into food plotting a lot. So stay tuned. Come hang out with us. Hopefully it's a good time. We're not the funniest guys in the world, but we're funny looking.
And today we're going to kind of debunk a few myths that people have about how food plots are set up and what deer are using those food plots for, and see if we can impart a little knowledge on you guys today.
Today I'm here with Colton Klein. He's a sole advisor at the AgriTec International, so am I. And, today we'd like to talk about some food plotting. Food plotting is a extremely popular thing in the United States. We got a lot of hunters and conservationists that food plot, and, it's a hobby, can be a job, and it's the whole 9 yards. But first and foremost, kind of give me your roadmap to starting out with a food plot as far as location, maybe soil testing after location, and then after finding out the location and doing some soil testing, moving into seed and
Sure.
things like that.
So with food plots, I would say the place to start is going to be obviously locate the deer or locate the most likely place those deer are to be.
Right.
If you have a farm that's not overly inhabited with deer, then you're going to have to kind of pick a new location. But, with the things that we know about deer, they tend to like wood lines. They tend to have cover close. You can, pretty quickly narrow in on a location just based off of what we know what deer want.
Right.
Soil testing is paramount when you're starting a food plot, because oftentimes places that are perfect to start food plots are poor soil areas that are outside of agriculture, generally creek edges, wood lines, places where nutrients are being pulled away from where you want your food plot to be.
Right.
So, soil testing is paramount anytime you're getting started. And the size of the food plot is another thing that I think a lot of people discount. They don't have to be 10-acre food plots. I mean, you can do a smaller, like a kill hole style food plot. Could be a 1/4 acre. It doesn't take tons and tons of ground to do this. Like you said, it's a hobby. We're not necessarily looking for, 60 bushel to the acre soybeans.
Right.
We're looking to, grow high quality forage for that deer that's meant to be eaten. And all we need to do is produce a healthy plant that has forage quality.
Okay.
So it doesn't take ridiculous amounts of fertilizer. It's more of a sweat equity thing.
Right.
For most food plotters.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I've always told my customers this. I've always said, liquid's not better in granular, and granular's not better in liquid. It's all about the timing of application.
Absolutely.
And so, as far as food plots go, I know we can talk a little bit about 318-18 plus. That's kind of a catch-all fertilizer because of the nitrogen amount.
Yep.
We're not putting too much nitrogen there. So, kind of give me a rundown on 318-18 and some examples of maybe past uses or crops that specifically in the plots.
Sure. So in my eyes, there's two kinds of food plotter. There's going to be the monoculture type food plotter that's going to pick one crop and they're going to grow that exclusively for their deer. And then there's the other kind of food plotter that's going to be more into blends. If you're buying your seed off the shelf, oftentimes it's going to be a blend. Well, and that being said, most blends are set up in a way in which something in that blend is going to do well in your soil.
Right.
Oftentimes, all of it won't do well in your soil. Parts of it will, parts of it won't. I find myself to fall more into the blended style food plot.
Okay.
And the reason that is because I feel like those blended food plots offer optimal nutrition at different times of the year, depending on the crop in the plot. So, your leafy greens early in the season, high levels of protein, as you're pushing into the rut, it's getting colder. Those deer are going to start looking for carbohydrates, things to keep mass, mainly the does, right? Because the bucks go crazy during the rut and they're not eating like they should. But then post rut, those bucks put the feed bag on, and a lot of your food plotters or your hunters will tell you, I kill my big bucks late season in corn, or I kill my big bucks late season in soybeans. And it makes sense. But the thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is that we talk a lot about cattle, or we talk a lot about livestock. Those are grazing species. Deer are a browsing species. They tend to not stand in one place and eat until they're full. They're going to take the distance between their bedding area and a major feed area, which will be a bean field, a wheat field, a corn field, something like that. And they will browse from the bedding area to the major feed source and then browse their way back.
Okay.
Deer are small ruminants. Their stomachs function similar to that of cow.
Right.
Right. The thing about it is at any given time, you can sample a deer's stomach contents. It'll be between 14 and 16% total protein. And they're just very good at finding that between food sources. A lot of conservationists will talk about forbs and things like that being also in high protein food source for those deer. So it's not necessarily any one source. So when I talk to food plotters, I don't like to think of my food plot as all around total nutrition for a deer, because it's not going to be that way. They're not going to camp out in my food plot and be there solely and consume everything there. I think of my food plot less of a buffet and more as a snack bar.
Okay.
So I take into account what's in my general area, what's growing, what agricultural offerings do we have in that area, and then I try to differentiate myself from them.
And by general area, you mean where the food plot is miles and miles and miles around the area?
I would say, generally speaking, within a mile.
Okay.
Within a mile. I know some of the bucks can travel further distances during the rut looking. Most of the time, your does are going to have a pretty small home area that'll comprise of, a full section or less. Most times. For instance, if I'm in a section of corn, right, and I have a wood block that may be 10 or 15 acres, and I'm going to put a food plot there, I'm not going to grow corn. Probably not going to grow beans. I'm going to look for leafy greens. That's something that they're not going to find early season around those cornfields, because they're not out there just chewing corn leaves, right? And then at the same time, I'm going to focus on later season carbohydrates, turnip bulbs. You can grow the greens as a form of high protein early in the season as a green, but then once a frost happens, turnips will convert starches to sugars, and those higher levels of carbohydrates, those deer are going to seek them out, and they'll actually dig up a turnip to eat it. In my food plots, I tend to focus early season, a mid-season, ripening of something, and then something late season that's going to be available for those deer, and I'm looking to catch them coming to the snack bar.
Absolutely. Well, I like that. I like that a lot. Really gave us a roadmap to look at as far as kind of the basic idea around food plotting. I really want to jump into the fertilizers.
Sure.
I want to know, how can we use them? When can we use them? Why do we use them? Type of deal.
Sure.
But first and foremost, the most important nutrient in the soil that we need to be looking at first is calcium. We need plenty of calcium availability. It's our trucker nutrient. Calcium is what your macros and your micros have to bind to actually get to the root system themselves. Let's go in. Let's talk about pelletized bag lime versus the chelated liquid calcium.
Okay.
I was just looking at it, and let's say we got a 50-pound bag, pelletized lime. I think we need 80 50-pound bags to get 2 tons.
Okay.
Right? So 80 50-pound bags is what it takes you.
It's what it should take you. More often than not, you'll find that people are under applying pelletized lime on food plots for that very reason.
Because they're only going to, I'm only going to buy 10 bags.
Yeah, and you're not going to pull. You're not going to pull a trailer out there.
Exactly. I'm only going to buy 10 bags. So we're already 70 bags short of where we need to be. Let's say each bag is $10 a bag, and we need 80. It's $800 for 1 acre. Well, a 5-gallon pail of the Adv-Cal is $170 shipped and delivered, and that's technically doing like an acre and a quarter. With already getting pricing out of the way, walk us into Adv-Cal and teach me and our friends here. Let us know, the difference and maybe which one we should be using.
What I've found is that, like we mentioned here earlier, oftentimes people are missing the recommendation on their pelletized lime just because it's inconvenient, super inconvenient, and it's tough on equipment.
But like I said, trucker nutrient, the nutrient that all of the other nutrients have to bind to hitch a ride and get to the root system. Let's remember that. That's important.
And pH modification. I mean, the thing about it is very rarely are you going to find a food plot that starts out with good pH. It just doesn't happen. You don't find it very often. The process with Pell lime would be to bring your 80 bags to the field, have a way to spread it consistently, incorporate it. Even though it's not rock lime, it still has a breakdown period for availability.
Yeah.
So you're not getting that right up front.
After breakdown, still takes time to adjust.
Oh yeah. It's a time thing. And oftentimes, nothing against us food plotters, but we have full-time jobs. Yeah. And we're doing this on the weekend when we have time. And sometimes weekends have softball tournaments, or you have to go visit the in-laws, and you can't hit those numbers.
There's only a handful of people that are blessed enough to have food plotting as a job.
Oh yeah. And so, what makes Adv-Cal the superior option, in my opinion? Few things. One, the trace mineral package that's involved with Adv-Cal is very similar to that of what you would see in compressed mineral blocks. It's very similar to trophy rock, same kind of minerals. So it builds in a mineral content to your food plot that I feel those deer are hunting. They're going to find mineral. It's whether or not you're making it available to them.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, those minerals aid in rooting and development. So you're getting a better food plot through them. Your pelletized lime, you're getting what you get. You're getting lime in a pelleted form.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less. With Adv-Cal, you're getting the ability to change pH, improving it, improving efficiency. You're also getting humic. You're getting trace mineral.
Yep.
You're getting an enzyme-based prebiotic and a seed setter. And unless you're growing food plots that are established and you plan on keeping them established for years to come, the seed setter is another huge thing in a food plot setting.
Well, it has root development in there. And so even with the established plot, just because a root is already developed doesn't mean it can't be developed a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. With our food plots, right, we're not harvesting those food plots. So any seeds that hit the soil have an increased opportunity for germination through the Adv-Cal. I just feel like it's kind of a set it and forget it type method that food plotters should really like because the ease of application, for one thing, is huge. The wear and tear that it doesn't do to your equipment is another.
Right.
And the fact that a single product is affecting your soil in a multitude of ways that you can't get in the dry game.
Let's go over that. So we got chelated calcium, we have humic acid, we have amino acids, we have enzymes, trace minerals, micronutrients, seed starter, root growth promoter, and a germinator, all compact into Adv-Cal. I'd call that an all-in-one soil amendment.
It is. I oftentimes call it an all-in-one soil amendment. It gives you the platform.
So if I take half an acre and I do 40 bags pelletized lime, and if I do 2.5 gallons Adv-Cal to the other half an acre, which one's getting availability quickest and soon?
Adv-Cal.
Or at what point?
So Adv-Cal, being that it's a chelated liquid calcium, it's bioavailable and it begins work immediately.
Okay.
Oftentimes you can see a visual response to that in a couple of weeks.
So now for the pelletized bag lime, the 40 bags on the half acre.
In a perfect world, maybe if you apply early enough in the season, mid-season, you're starting to see those benefits.
In a perfect world.
In a
perfect weather. Weather is working good for us. We're getting the rain, the temperatures, all the conditions that we really want.
And,
soil type as well plays a huge factor because, every 10 feet soil is pretty much different. If every 10 feet soil is different in nutrient value, then that obviously means every mile, as you go up the United States from the tip of Florida all the way up Minnesota, you know what I mean? It's going to be completely different.
Yep.
Different factors, of course. How long are we lasting in the soil?
2 to 4 years.
2 to 4 years.
Now, and I say 2 to 4 because
removal rates
and sandy soils.
Okay.
I mean, depending on where you're at, if you're creek edge, oftentimes those soils are sandy.
Yeah.
And nutrients move quickly in, but they also move quickly out. So it's something to monitor. The sandier your soil is, generally, the more often you would have to apply.
Okay. So we get Adv-Cal out of the way. We do that. We apply that. We get some seed down. Let's go into what's next. Okay, so we have Adv-Cal done. We still need fertilizer. I get asked all the time, if I do Adv-Cal, do I still need fertilizer? Well, absolutely. We're just fixing a couple things in the soil. We still need to give the key nutrients to building the structure of the plant itself. 3-18-18, very versatile fertilizer for us. Orthophosphate, very, very low salt content, almost none. 3-18-18 has the same package as the Adv-Cal. So that has your trace minerals, your micronutrients, prebiotic, your amino acids, your enzymes. Okay, so we're getting along doing the same thing with the prebiotic. I like that. As far as 3-18-18 goes, is there any crop that I would want to put in a food plot that you would say don't use 3-18-18?
No. Okay. So the thing about it is that I found in food plots is we tend to be very budget oriented, and I understand that. But at the same time, you've got to have the key components for production. Even if it's not production at agricultural scale, you still got to have it.
Right.
Depending on your farmer or your food plotter and depending on, what their budget looks like, there's some wiggle room there. But honest opinion, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus are going to be key for production in a food plot.
Absolutely. So things like 10-20-10 plus.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great one. Plenty of food plotters ran with it. Nitro-Maxx plus. Nitro-Maxx is literally a 20% nitrogen with pretty much borderline 4% Adv-Cal per gallon with it. The Adv-Cal stabilizes the nitrogen, decreases the risk of burn, and it is a slow release as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely love those. Name some fertilizers that we got here that you like to use, and let's get some case scenarios.
So the four products period that I tend to use the most in food plots almost exclusively is the advanced calcium, the Nitro-Maxx, the 3-18-18, and then I like using BioAct. I like to sprinkle BioAct in there for the pretty points of things. And stress reduction. Oftentimes, like I said, our food plots are in areas that you can't irrigate.
Right.
You're not, it's tough. So I like using the BioAct as a stress reduction tool.
Which is mixed in
with
every
all of
single product we're talking about.
I'm not going to talk about a food plot product that we carry that's not going to contain the plus package.
Right.
Because I feel like that package alone gives so much benefit to food plots outside of the NPK ratio. I don't want to say that they're equal, but I would say that plus package that's in those fertilizers is almost as important as the fertilizer itself.
No, I agree on that. It takes a lot of being in the industry to understand why I agree with that. I do want to talk about Nitro-Maxx Plus, just a brief little bit. It is important to get out there. Nitro-Maxx Plus does have a really good price on it, especially with nitrogens this year. We've seen Nitro-Maxx actually be competitive and better than a majority of nitrogens.
Yes, sir.
And Nitro-Maxx has the prebiotic. So we've talked about BioAct, this prebiotic, so much. What's the symbiotic relationship that BioAct has mixed in with the nitrogen? What makes it a nitrogen that we want to even be going with?
So the thing about Nitro-Maxx that makes it the best in food plot, in my opinion, is the slow, medium, and fast release aspects of it.
Okay.
Right? Since it's derived from 3 different sources of nitrogen,
right?
Availability is longer.
And it's a ammoniacal nitrate and urea with those 3 nitrogens mixed into there. I understand that is you're essentially going to be getting a nitrogen up front. You're getting a medium release, and then you're getting an extended period release. And all those put together is kind of like spoon feeding. We all got babies, and we're going to feed that baby. We're going to spoon feed it. If I take a gallon of ice cream and I try to feed an infant a gallon of ice cream in one sitting, it's going to either extremely hurt that infant or worse. Same thing with crop.
Yeah, absolutely.
With nitrogen. If we give it the spoon fed and the bite sizes that it can digest and handle, we're going to get better quality and growth. So what that means is better crude proteins, better total digestible nutrients, 2 very, very, very important things for weight gain on food plots. And we're going to get a healthier, more mature plant. So higher quality, higher yield probably. At the same time, much more quality. Yeah, that's what I find extremely interesting and awesome about Nitro-Maxx. With the humic acid acting as a soil binder in there. University studies on that are just astronomical. The soil life, we do have a study where it's lasted over 300 days in the soil. That's awesome.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
So, and as that pertains to a food plotter, what that means for us is we don't have to come in right before season and apply fertilizer.
Right.
And maybe booger up our deer.
Right.
That's the thing is, we're in here doing food plots to feed the deer, but our presence is going to be off-putting to those deer.
Yeah.
So any change that you make to their environment is immediately noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I'm glad you're kind of talking about bothering them, not wanting to bother the deer. With the extended period of how long Nitro-Maxx lasts in the soil, I have seen plenty of soil tests showing residual available nitrogen in the subsoil and like right there ready to go. I bet I could pull up my own soil sample right now. Guarantee I think it was like 48 pounds available nitrogen.
Yeah.
And that was off of 1 application of Nitro-Maxx. And I think it was a 6-gallon rate. So I put 80 units in and I had 48 pounds available after like 2 months.
It gives you longevity.
Absolutely.
And it keeps you out of that food plot at the time in which those deer need to be the most comfortable prior to hunting season.
Absolutely. I do think, however, if it's one of those nitrogens we want to green up with, we do need to add a couple extra gallons on some of the typical application rates that we recommend for food plots. For hay and pasture, we usually recommend enough for the green up.
Sure.
But if you're a food plotter and you really, really like, if that's what you want to see, if you only believe if your plots are doing good by what they're showing you visually, then, we do a couple extra gallons, get some green up. But other than that, each gallon's about 10 units we're throwing out there. Very efficient,
Yeah.
Very efficient, very easy to use, easily mixable with water.
Doesn't need incorporation.
Yeah, it does not need to be incorporated in. It's really a pour and go.
Exactly.
You can have, your hose in the sprayer at the same time you're pouring the Nitro-Maxx in there, and you're just ready to go. I really liked that we could talk a little bit about Nitro-Maxx like that. One of the things I do want to talk about when it comes to food plotting is, just for fun, layouts as in like landing strips and guide pathways and stuff like that. Anything and everything. Let me backtrack real quick. The reason I want to get into layouts and understanding how to lay out a food plot is because we've all heard about the food plotter that does 1 full acre of a food plot, and he's all pissed off because the deer come around, and when they come around, they're only there 5 minutes, and then they bounce. Neighbor of this gentleman that might be doing 1 acre, but that 1 acre, if you looked at it from an aerial view, looks like camo because he has pathways and stuff for all the bucks to go check around. So you know what I'm leading into. Go ahead and walk us into laying out.
So first thing you have to consider is where the prevailing wind's going to come from. Most of the time it's going to be a north prevailing wind. So you want your food plot set up to where you sit is going to not inhibit your ability to see deer from them winding you.
Right.
For instance, if you have a north prevailing wind, you want your food plot sitting east and west of you, okay? Depending on where those deer are coming from. Things that you can do, I hear people all the time talk about, my deer will stay in the tree edge and eat out of the food plot, but will never come fully into the food plot. Oftentimes that's because, the trees and the wooded area is a good cover, and then the food plot tends not to have as much cover in it. So I talk about, transitioning cover. So if you're doing a blended food plot, your wood edge is obviously your hard edge, and you're going to focus on putting some of your taller food plot inputs right there on that edge.
Right.
And then as you move toward the middle of the plot, you can do your shorter food plot offerings, your peas and things like that. But you want to do like sunflowers right on the tree edge.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Some
And
cover.
it just makes them feel more comfortable. They'll walk through a gradient of cover to get to an open area. But if it's a hard line between hard cover and just bare food plot, they tend to be a little skittish.
Right.
That, and oftentimes, deer are going to circle downwind of that food plot to scent check what's in it. I mean, your big bucks during the rut, you may never see them if the does aren't in the food plot, because they will circle downwind and scent check that food plot before they come into it. And they're looking for you, and they're looking for in-heat does. When you set up your food plot, you got to think like a deer and understand kind of how they're going to work with the plot. You talked about checker patterns or pathways built in the food plot. I love that. And if your food plot's in a situation where you can do that, that's great. If not, then you need to focus on allowing for an appropriate amount of cover on the edges to make those deer feel comfortable.
So let's say I have a circle. I have 1 acre, it's a circle, and that's the only available land I have for putting a plot. When on this circle, should the outer layer be as tall as I can make it, and then it goes kind of shorter going to the center, providing cover to get them forced into the plot? Or is that just...
To an extent. So you can do things to skew it in your favor. If you have a perfect circle and you're going to put your deer stand on the eastern portion of the circle, I would put your tallest forage on the western edge of that circle. And I would, if you can, decrease the height by using different forages as it comes to you.
In my head, I'm picturing a half moon shape.
Okay. That'll be what it is. Another thing to consider is if you're going to mix in like a highly desirable blend into your food plot, I'd like to put that at my feet.
Okay.
I want the part that they're coming there for, the turnips or the real high protein or the real high carbohydrate sources. I put those closest to me.
Right.
That way, you're increasing your odds at a closer shot.
Perfect. Last thing to really talk about here, Colton, just to bring a little bit of fun in here, is I want to talk about a myth and a misconception that is heard a lot. Do deer really prefer food plots over natural browsing?
No, they do not prefer food plots over not specifically.
Okay. If deer do not prefer food plots over browsing, what can every food plotter specifically, what's the one thing that we need to be doing to make that difference?
I would say, and this goes back to the reason why I do multiple offerings in my food plot for the deer, a variety. the variety, is the spice of life, right? With deer, offering a variety gives them the opportunity.
Goes back to the snack bar, like you're
Snack
saying.
bar. They're going to browse through that food plot and they'll find what they want. That's why they are that way. They are a browse species because they're not going to camp out on any one thing. They're going to pick up what they need through travel.
Right. So if I have a corn plot, probably not having them stick around very long. If I have a bean plot, probably not having them stick around very long. But if I have corn, beans, brassicas, clover, turnips, radishes,
those deer will tend to daybed in the food plot.
I like it. Hopefully that myth helps out some people that are wondering if their food plot is making the deer in their area the biggest thing in the world, or if it's just the area making them the biggest thing in the world. You know what I mean? So with that being said, y'all, thank you for joining us here today on the Dirt Kings Podcast. Meet myself, Colton Klein. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out, give us a call, talk to me or Colton anytime. Colton and I, we both work a lot with food plotters, and it's a big hobby that we all have here at AgriTec, so we're going to keep it going.
There you go.